The meeting will resume, and we'll continue with Mr. Gerber presenting on the CIP.
So I think we were talking about how we have a potential discussion item on April 5th with the goal of an April 12th adoption. In the interim, we're always available, of course, for one-on-one discussions if there's additional questions. As well as we have the CIP bus tour that will take place on Saturday the 2nd from 8 to noon. We'll be driving around and touring various CIP projects, again, as part of our engagement process this year. Additionally, one of the things that we plan to do, as we've listened to the questions and discussion from the CIP presentation thus far, I think we've recognized that we haven't communicated with the council as well as we could have on project statuses. And so one thing we plan to implement is a quarterly project update. We'll be doing that essentially following the quarterly financial report. Every quarter we'll be talking about street and utility projects, running through when, what the status of the project is, what's going on with various projects, and answering questions. Again, just as a way to keep stuff better informed for the governing body. We think that's going to be helpful, not only this year, but as we move into the CIP next year. As I started off saying, we have a lot of information to go through tonight. Generally, this is information that the council has received previously. It was either posted or emailed to the council, but I thought we'd take just a second and kind of walk through what it is, and then I'll ask both our Public Works Director and Jason Peak and Nikki Lee to come up, and we're all going to take turns walking through these various documents. I will also say that this isn't formatted consistently or the way we want it to be at this point, and so we're going to work to get that better, but at this point we have at your table tonight, there's essentially a giant document which has 5 tabs on it. The first tab should have 5.
Okay, excuse me.
All right, so the first tab is council questions from previous meetings, as well as a half-cent sales tax project history and a 2016 neighborhood street map. So in just a second, our Public Works Director will come up and talk through some of these items. The second tab is something the council hasn't seen before, and that's actually an alley rehabilitation list, and we'll be talking through that with you as well. The third tab is just what we're calling a 2016 street project narrative. It just essentially talks about the 2016 street projects, a start date, a completion date, anticipated completion date, just a couple sentences about each project. Tab 4 is 2015 and 2016 utility projects, stormwater, water, and then wastewater. And then the last tab is something that was emailed to the council with the original CIP, but we've included it here as well, and that is a comparison of last year's CIP to this year's CIP, sort of what the 2016 through 2021 look like versus what the 17 through 21 looks like. So that's an introduction for you as to what we plan to do tonight. And without further ado, I'm going to ask Jason Peak to come forward and begin with the document in the first tab.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Jason Peak, Public Works Director. This is actually my 4th week on the job, so I think I'm the newest person out of the presentations you've heard tonight. But glad to be here and help walk you through this document. As Doug said, the first part is kind of a Q&A, a response to several questions we received about the CIP. It's pretty much self-explanatory. We tried to provide some detailed information to those questions. And then I wanted to move on actually to the appendix documents that are included in that tab, which is the half-cent project list. And what we've done here is tried to, sorry?
I'm sorry, I think we had a question there.
Sure.
So if you don't mind.
Absolutely.
Since this is so long, we might interrupt periodically if we have a question. Councilman Clare.
I have a question on the questions.
Okay, we'll
Okay.
go back to the questions then.
On number 2, when you said, you're talking about the money, what happens to it when there's no snow removal, and it says in a mild year such as this past winter, the extra budget authority. What is an extra budget authority?
Okay, and Mr. Gerber.
Mr. Mayor and Councilwoman, extra budget authority would just generally be described as money that wasn't expended from an amount budgeted. So there's a part of the citywide half-cent sales tax budget that deals with snow removal, potentially. There's some funds that are, it's a sort of a lump sum. In 2015, as you know, especially the latter part of the winter, I don't know that we got more than an inch or so of snow. And so we had excess funds from what we had budget authority for. And so those funds just became part of the general street maintenance.
So does it go to needed snow removal? Is that, because it says was used for?
If necessary, those funds are available for snow removal, and that was a decision that was made by a previous council maybe 2 years ago. So if necessary, it's used for snow removal. If not, it's used for general street maintenance projects,
Can I ask that?
as allowed under the half-cent sales tax ballot language.
Okay, and then on the Fire Station 13, number 11, it says, knowing these conversations, so the money's in there, there's an open project, it's recommended, and it's on the CIP in a holding position, knowing these conversations continue and haven't been finalized. What conversations haven't been finalized?
I'm sorry, yes, I was reading it. Waiting, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We can have you
So when this, to address this as straightforward as possible, there was an inclusion in a previous CIP budget for Fire Station 13 and also Fire Station 14. As we proceeded with the plans to construct that, there was a conversation about how it was going to be staffed. In the 2008 study, which I think people have differing opinions as to what that said and what agreements existed at that point, there was an assumption that that staffing for Fire Station 13 would come from existing staff members. There was a discussion amongst this body as to whether it was going to be the existing members or whether it was going to be newly hired people. And there were some actions during the budget that actually called for adding fire personnel to fill those stations. A determination was made by that body at that time not to add those positions. We, at that point, decided it was in everybody's best interest to do the GIS study and to conclude a longer-term strategic plan for the construction of that facility and the staffing of that facility. That is what we're working on now.
Okay, all right. Yeah, Mrs. Ortiz.
Well, I would agree to disagree. What 2008 study are you talking about, Jim? Are you talking about the 2006 study?
If I
Because you said 2008.
If I misrepresented the year, I meant 2006.
Because I know-
The previous
It was
study that was done on this.
2006.
Okay, just want to make sure we don't have another study floating around out there somewhere. The way, I know we talked about staffing, and I know we could never agree on it, and then it's kind of, to me, it kind of like went away. I think we need to have a serious discussion on Fire Station 13, or if we want to add 14 too, because it kind of bothers me every time I see in the CIP that we have money for it, but we're not going to do anything about it. And you're right, we need to have some serious discussions and make some serious. Nobody before, not on this council, but nobody before wanted to make any serious votes, and I think we need to. It's time to do that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You want to? Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilman, I agree with you. I think that's the reason that we're taking the steps with the GIS study that was just recently completed, and we need to work through that process.
All right. Back to you, Mr. Peak.
Thank you. So moving on from the Q&A portion, the next section within that first document one is a list related to the half-cent citywide projects. And the first part of that appendix is a look back from 2009 to 2015 of the completed street projects. So this is listing the major street projects by year, and the information included on that is the CIP year in which the project was identified, and then we also have the actual half-cent expenditures with those associated projects. And so, as you see, that totals by the different fiscal periods, wrapping up with 2015 for that. I'll pause
Okay.
if there are any specific questions on that.
Questions? Seeing none, moving on.
Okay. And so then the next page was per your request to talk about the updates. What do we have planned in the current period of 2016? And what you'll see on this is a similar list. We have $12 million allocated for neighborhood mill and overlay projects. This is going to cover about 24 miles of streets going into various neighborhoods around town, removing part of the asphalt layer, doing some patching, and putting back a new asphalt layer. Then we also have a list of the major street projects with half-cent transportation funds that are planned for construction for 2016. We have, of course, the CIP year, the projected project budgets for those, as well as current expenses to date.
Okay, so those there before, so the 2016 projects
For the citywide half-cent.
for the half-cent, citywide half-cent sales tax.
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. The next part is what we call the other projects in the citywide half-cent fund. We talked about major street projects and the neighborhood projects. These are other projects that would include the categories such as the ADA ramp replacement projects, curb and gutter replacement projects, alley repairs, and the 50/50 sidewalk repair program. And similar to the previous two, this is a look back, 2009 to 2015, of the completed projects with their expenses by fiscal period.
Any questions? Okay,
Moving forward, so for 2016, this is a description of those same project categories. We do have some projects that were not completed in 2015 that are still underway in 2016, as well as with the alley repair projects. We do have some that go back to the 2014 CIP allocation that are underway.
okay, good. It shows the progress and what we're going to be doing a lot this year.
Yes, sir. So continuing within that document one, so we talked about the individual projects, so kind of going down to the micro level and focusing on specific project activities within the funds. Budget and Finance also put together kind of a macro summary looking at the citywide half-cent funding history. And this will take you back 2009 and forecasted out to 2019, looking at how much revenue we've collected by fiscal period, how much expenditures we've had by fiscal period, and then the ending fund balance for each fiscal period.
This is good.
Okay. And then the last part of that first tab is an actual map describing, this is not specific to just the half cent, but citywide, what street projects we have planned for 2016. So kind of showing the geographic location. You can see one that we've, Seward Avenue, these lighter blue shaded projects are the neighborhood mill and overlay, and then the darker blue are kind of the major street projects that we have.
Okay? Questions? Questions about your council district?
Okay,
Okay, going on.
let's see. So moving on to the next tab is a summary of the alley projects. This reference back to what was in progress. It's called Document 2 in your handout. And this is what is currently underway or future alley rehabilitation projects that were listed within the half cent program and their current status.
Okay. Yeah, question, Councilman Shum?
Thank you. We recently had alleys being done in Highland Park, and one of the main concerns was we had trash trucks coming down them that immediately tore them back up again. So what precautions, what plans do we have to address that issue so that we're not just doing alleys and then watching them fall back into disrepair right away?
Yes, who would like to, this is a county issue, but who would like to
Yeah,
respond?
well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, Jason, for jumping in here. So we're working with legal on a presentation. This is a challenge. We have based on the way we allow contracts for waste collection, we have multiple trucks that are working throughout the city, through the alleys. We think that it's something that has to be addressed. What we would like to do is come back to this body with an analysis of what's happening, what it's costing us, what the potential solutions are, and then have a discussion at this body. But it is absolutely a challenge for us. I'm sure people don't want us to tell them who their waste collection needs to be, and so I think we just need to present this body with an economic argument.
Yeah. It's been mentioned before, and it is a concern that we are aware of. And any other questions on the alleys? Okay, I'm sorry, Councilman Hiller.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the alley list. I did ask for it. There aren't dollar figures on any of these, but once we got started, at first, when the plan was done, I think there was a vision that we could do lots of alleys each year. And then staff, once they got into rebuilding them, was estimating we could probably only do 4 a year. And each year, up to and including, I'll have to look back, 2014 and 2015, I think we had 4 alleys each year. I am not seeing that many in this list. So I wondered, I know they've been backed up. Are you expecting to do all of the ones that are in the first block, I mean, down to 1400 block of Polk and Western in 2016 and get caught up? Or I don't know how the dollars go, whether we're going to actually skip a year's worth of money somewhere in there?
Sure, Councilwoman Hiller, the ones that are listed as either engineering and design or awarded for construction are projects that we intend to deliver as part of 2016. My understanding is we have estimates for those, and we have to wait and see if the bid responses we get on these projects are within those estimates to actually be able to deliver. But the intent is that they would be covered with the funding that we currently have.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Gerber?
If I may also, just to clarify, Mr. Mayor, thank you. I think it goes without saying, but this list just includes alleys that are planning to be rebuilt. It doesn't include our normal alley work where we come through and regrade them or do dirt work or any of those types of things. This is actually when we're putting essentially a mini street down in an alley.
Okay, good point. Okay.
So after the alley document, we move into the tab 3 or document 3, and this is what we call the project narratives. This is something we're going to work on providing for regular communication, not only to council but to the public, to give you an update on all the street work that will be going on this year. And basically what this tries to do in a quick summary fashion is identify the project location, give you an estimated or an update on project schedule, kind of start and completion date, details of what the project includes, and then the funding source for the project. And so this is a summary of all street projects planned for 2016.
Okay. Yeah, Councilman Cohen?
Thank you for providing this information. And it's also nice to see all the past projects that have been completed, and being able to see the approximate start dates on when these are starting. And I look forward to the calls that there are too many orange cones, because
Yeah.
that's what we want as our street sticks. Thanks.
You're welcome. It was funny, we talked about the title of this report maybe should be the Orange Barrel Report.
Good.
So we'll see what lands. Any other questions?
No, go ahead.
With that, I will turn it back over to Doug for the utility project information.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. Tab 4 is a listing of utility projects for 2015 and 2016. We just kind of as an aside, we actually had a debate as to whether or not we should have a separate night for utilities or combine them in a discussion with street projects. We landed on the conclusion that we wanted to talk about utilities with streets, because although we talk about streets a lot and this is the year of the streets, we can't ever forget the fact that most street projects have some associated utility work with it. And so it's really not, you can't really talk about one without talking about the other. They're part and parcel of each other. So again, as we heard you loud and clear that you wanted kind of a look back and a look ahead as to what was happening. And so this is a list of previous utility projects as well as projects that we anticipate coming up in 2016. As with Mr. Peak's presentation, I don't want to belabor these projects. There's 100 projects on here. Certainly don't want to go through them line by line, but I'm glad to talk through them at your leisure. If you have particular questions about a project or something you want
And
to
maybe
quickly
we can
discuss.
get back, if they, maybe they don't haven't read these already, or they will be reading them, have questions to get back to you, or have them for the next council meeting when we will be, have that
Absolutely.
opportunity again. Councilwoman Ortiz?
I have a quick question. Doug, is there any projects that got started that didn't get finished? Is that in here anywhere
Yeah.
that we, from last year or previous years, or?
Councilwoman Ortiz, Mr. Mayor, yes. I think as you look through this list, you'll see that there's projects that were anticipated in 2015 but will continue this year. And that could be due to a lot of circumstances. It could be that they just simply didn't get done. It could be that they were planned to be multi-year projects. It could be that they're just something we do every year. So there's a lot of reasons, but certainly there's some projects in here that didn't get completed in 2015.
So how do I figure that out then? Because would it still say 2015, or would it stay, or as I'm looking at 2016 year, but should that say 2015? That's probably one that didn't, help me to read
Yeah,
this.
great question. Thank you, Councilwoman. For example, if you look on page 1 of this report, the second line down, City Park Pump Station Phase 2. Make sure we're all on the same page here. So it says the year's 2015. The construction start was March of 2015. Anticipated substantial completion will be April of 2016. So that's a project that carried over from 2015 to 2016.
Okay, and they're all on here listed like that.
Indeed, yes.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, with Deputy Mayor Hiller.
Mayor, I just want to confirm with Mr. Gerber here and maybe draw everybody's attention to, as I look at this utility list, some of them have pretty much the same headers as some of the street project list. And that is because they're tied in with these projects, I assume. And I really appreciate that. It might help all of us as we continue to fine tune this. The street project list doesn't necessarily mention which ones have sewer and storm sewer components tied to them. We can read this and connect the dots, I think, and it's helpful, but it might help to tie them together.
Deputy Mayor and Mr. Mayor, yeah, we tried to maintain some consistency for ease of flipping back and forth. We also try to make sure we coordinate those utility projects with our street projects. If you look in the street project narrative, the third tab, I think in general, we tried to note when there was going to be utility work, probably, maybe not always, but I'm looking at, for example, Southwest Wanamaker, it talks about water line replacement, storm sewer replacement. There may be areas where they weren't tied together as well as they could be, but we tried to make note of that.
Yeah, Clay doesn't mention it, and, you know, it was kind of a surprise to everybody in my neighborhood, my district, that the city was going to do as much, and of course, they're thrilled with that, but we didn't know it, and it doesn't show here, and so this is helpful to see the utility list as well.
As noted, this will be an evolving report,
Yeah.
and we're gonna
Thank
tie
you.
those things together better.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead.
Well, if there's no other questions on utility projects, I will ask Nikki Lee to come forward, and she's going to talk through the side-by-side comparison of the CIPs.
Okay. Nikki.
Good evening.
Welcome.
So the final tab 5 looks like this. It's labeled comparison of 2016 through 20 to 2017 through 2021 CIP. As was mentioned, this document was sent out with the original CIP. And what it does is it lines out, you can see on the pink header column, what was included in last year's CIP as the total 5-year project total next to what's in the 17 through 21. Because as you know, it's very difficult to have both books side by side. I know some of you have done it and try to cross-check it. So we've attempted to do that for you and try to summarize it as much as possible. So for example, on the first page there, we have infill sidewalks, pedestrian master plan. You know that plan was adopted tonight. And the 2016 through 2020 CIP had $2.5 million over the course of 5 years. But with the 17 through 21 CIP, we decided that it was a higher priority and to really to be able to fund the pedestrian master plan, increase that amount per year by $100,000. So the total in the 17 through 21 CIP is $3 million versus the $2.5 million. There's also cases sometimes on this list where it might look like a project decrease, but actually what happened is the 2016 funding fell off. So it's not that we decreased the total project cost, it's just that part of the cost we're now showing in a prior year. And then one more change that happened, for example, on the utility list, is occasionally there was a project that was included in last year's CIP, and then through the course of the year decided that perhaps it wasn't a higher priority. You know, things came up, priorities changed, and so we actually bumped it to, in some cases, the future funding list, which is on the back of the CIP, as projects that at this point we don't know what year they're going to be in. So for the most part, there's, I think, a pretty good but brief explanation on where things changed. We'd be happy to elaborate on any of that, but really wanted to create a snapshot, kind of an easy look at what changed and where and why.
Questions? Councilwoman Claire?
Just quickly looking through this on the public safety, purchased 2 trucks in the 2017-2021. Why is that?
Sorry, are you talking about the purchase 2 trucks, the very bottom one there? The way that we do our trucks and our apparatus, and this makes more sense if you look at kind of the full schedule, is we have basically one major purchase per year. We're either doing truck or apparatus or engine or a combination of both. So what this happens is this is the purchase that landed in 2021. So that year just wasn't included in the prior CIP. So this is the 5th year of project purchases.
Okay.
That makes sense?
And then I saw this Shunga flood mitigation study in the 2017-21. Did we just do a study on that?
No.
No? Yes?
Yeah, go ahead.
Councilwoman, Mr. Mayor, we've been working with the Corps on that study. They've been going and surveying residents along the Shunga, and it's anticipated to be a multi-part study. We actually had a series of public meetings last fall, I believe, talking with neighbors in those areas, and that will potentially continue this year.
So is this the final cost of the study, or is this a cost of part of the study?
Can you tell me where that is, just so I can get with you? I don't know which, they aren't
I
numbered,
don't
but
know.
it's how many pages?
Utilities and storm water
Okay,
fund.
okay, I
The
see it
third to
there.
last page.
Yeah.
Mr. Mayor and Councilwoman, that is the city's cost of the study. We're doing a cost sharing with the Corps to do that study, and that's our cost of the study itself. It doesn't include any potential implementation or building or anything associated with it. It's just a study.
And that really, it's from the Lake Sherwood all the way through the city to the Kansas River. It's very, very long, and so it's very extensive.
Mr. Mayor, that's correct.
Okay, other questions? Anything? Well, I would like to say, and I can be corrected by other council members, but as long as I've been on the council, this is the most complete information we've ever received on this by far. I compliment everyone involved, and, you know, whatever the work that's done to put this together, it has to be amazing. And I think some of the things we've talked about, people have asked, what are the half-cent sales tax projects that the city has done, because they don't see them all? Well, because they're near this part of town. But this now, and this is a public document, so anyone can look at it and see all of the where the money's been spent, and as well as the projects for 2016, and saying in here, hopefully when we'll do them. So it's just showing totally what we are doing in the past. And I just can't compliment enough to have this achieved. I think it's a tremendous, it's for certainly recognizing the staff, but also the city of Topeka, what we're doing. And I'll put it up against most other cities that won't have anything quite like this. Other comment, Deputy Mayor?
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to talk about the street projects a little bit, if that's okay. I really, and I'm going to state some concerns. I've been concerned about them before, and I so appreciate the time that the staff has put in and the homework. I spent some time taking these documents to kind of seek the information that I've been concerned about. I had some time today to do that, and so I want to walk people through a little bit. One of the things I've been concerned about is, I have said, I'm concerned about the streets that we didn't get to, the things that didn't get done over those years. So I want to draw you to the handout that we got today in the blue tab, where the dollars that we've spent on half-cent are added up. It's page 2 of Appendix 1, where the half-cent sales tax they're itemized what we did, and then we've got a street project total. And Nikki, you were going to go back and total the budget on it. I don't know if you have, but I did it myself. I'm close anyway. One of the things we talked about was, well, how much did we spend compared to how much we expected to spend? If you add up the column for how much was budgeted each year, it totals $75,706,000, I think, if I got it right. And as opposed to the fact that we only spent in those 5 years $58,812,000. We do have the fourth quarter report. There is, I think, maybe about $2.5 million that is encumbered but hasn't been quite booked yet. So there's a little bit more than that. But when you do those numbers, there's roughly $16.3 million that we had budgeted in those first 5 years that didn't get spent. And understand, I'm really pleased with the work that we've done. We learned a lot when we got into some of those streets, and I understand about changing the priorities of what streets would have been done. But what I did was sat down with the yellow book, the one that we all got recently, the original book, to look at what we had hoped to do and compared to that, what we got done. And I think, just to explain, again, my sort of heartburn or whatever you might want to call it about how much is still undone, I wanted you to see that. It's pretty sloppy. I sat down at my dining room table with a pen and this document, here I've got a couple of them. What I did was go through, is there enough? Was to go through what we had planned to do originally and then make a mark on what got done. It's kind of hard to follow that. What's most telling for me is the items that are circled are ones where it says CO, that's going to be countywide half-cent sales tax. And the ones that are blank aren't on any list right now. I even went to what's proposed in our new book to be done between 2017, 18, and 19, just to see where all those streets that were in bad shape in 2009 were. And it's just, we've obviously done a lot, but it was very sobering to me. It's just been bothering me. I've spoken up about it, so I wanted to share with you that we've still got a lot to do, a lot to support the staff on, and a lot that maybe our constituents expected was going to get done that isn't on anybody's list yet. So that gives me heartburn just because I feel like we've still got quite a bit to do. We're 2 years back on the alleys. That had concerned me. We got the information today that that money is still there, which I'm happy about. One of the conversations we've had along the way was we had extra money to do extra things, and I knew that we'd been behind. And so it looks like you can see the numbers where it's all going to wash out, but I just hope that we all take seriously the question of how are we going to do the rest of these streets. And I also have asked before, and when you look at this list, that's what gives me heartburn as well, is for the streets that we've pushed off that are going to be in the countywide half-cent sales tax sometime in the next 15 years. When I look at this list, and that's what I could see in my head, I guess, and I see where we had some of those streets rostered. They were supposed to happen in 2011 and 2012 and 2013. I think it's important for all of us to make sure that the staff has a plan for what we're going to do with the surface of those streets that aren't going to get done for another 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years as we go through finalize our capital plan and our operating plan for this year. 12th Street, for instance, is like almost not drivable, but it's not going to roll up for 6 years. So what are we going to do? I just think that's important. I also had a question that I asked in the QA that came back about question number 5 on that very first page, on what the local street program on page 106 of the plan was. I'm not sure I understand the answer yet. If you look in the new plan on page 106, it says in the paragraph description at the top that extra $2 million a year for the next 3 years would be for let me read it here. Provide maintenance to local and collector streets as needed to prevent deterioration. And it says that it will be done through mill and overlay, full-depth pavement repairs, and replacement of concrete curb and gutter, which is what the street maintenance program, the one we've had all along, does. And then down at the bottom, it says it would just reduce and prevent maintenance. And so I remain unclear as to whether this is just like the other one or whether it's different. Can you help with that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Hiller, specifically to that project category, as you described, within the half cent, we have a lot of what are called the major street projects that have turned into what we like to call reconstruction. I mean, we're basically tearing everything out and putting it back together. This year we have, in addition to that, the neighborhood mill and overlay, which not knowing how familiar you are with what's called pavement management or asset management, we talk a lot about doing the right treatment at the right time. The simple comparison is your car. You have a new car, it needs an oil change in 3,000 miles. Otherwise, you're not preserving that. This program is, or this dedication of funding for those collectors and local streets, which are the majority of the asset that we own out there. I mean, if you think percentage-wise, the major streets, while they carry the higher volumes, percentage-wise of total assets are small. We need to be investing money in the larger percentage of assets. And so this is looking at doing what we call rehab and preventative maintenance work throughout the city on those local and collector streets that aren't in need of reconstruction. And so it was, my understanding is an attempt to highlight that specifically within the half cent, that we are directing funds towards those asset management activities, which are more comprehensive throughout the city, as opposed to individual specific projects. So does that help clarify?
Well, because we're doing residential streets now in the first group, it seemed the same to me. Maybe something I don't understand is if we're doing this big $12 million project this year, I thought it was coming out of that first category, the street maintenance.
So I'd say that the neighborhood streets that are referenced in the other portion of the half cent, the reason they're listed in there, because like I said, those are those major reconstruction. They are tied to utility or storm or some of the other things that Mr. Gerber was referencing, how we're trying to coordinate utility and street project work, which the design and the time to deliver that it is more intensive and it takes more time, more coordination. These local streets are, like I said, typically just dealing with the pavement asset, so there's not a lot of need for coordinating replacement of underground utilities because it's looking at different treatments on that pavement that doesn't require the level of effort as reconstruction.
Okay, so the 12 million, there are 7 neighborhoods rolling up this year, and it's a new initiative. Which of these two, the page 100 of maintenance and improvement of existing streets, or the page 106 local streets, which category are they in?
They would be more in line with that local, the 12 million you're talking about. It's the similar type of projects would be performed in those local streets, the local street designation on an annual basis.
Okay.
So whereas before that was all lumped into one group, I think what we've tried to do in the future CIP years is kind of create those different program areas within the half cent where we have kind of the major street reconstruction. And this year you're seeing that, our major streets, and then we talked about neighborhood streets. And then in the future CIP, that second category would be our local streets, rehab, preventative maintenance type activities on pavement.
Okay. And the third concern that I had was on, let's see, page find it. The 12th Street project. Oh, wait a minute, let me back up to this one. So this is not, this 2 million a year, we agreed to add 8 full-time equivalent positions to the street department, to street maintenance for this year. And at one point, there was discussion that that would come out of half-cent sales tax. That's not this money then. That's something else.
Mr. Gerber?
Deputy Mayor, Mr. Mayor, that's correct. That's not this money.
Okay. Then when we get to the 12th Street project, it is on page 40 of the book. 12th Street is a project that was originally early in the citywide half-cent sales tax plan that is now in the countywide plan. And in all of the records for the county, and I can send this around just so it's easy for people. In all the records that we've had, as we've discussed the countywide half-cent sales tax, that was a $6,600,000 project. I don't understand why here this shows a different project budget of 7.2 million and also suggests that we would spend 4.4 million out of the countywide funds and actually bond 2.8 million. And I did ask that question earlier, and the answer was, oh, we've always been talking about using that other money, but I wasn't aware that we'd ever, it concerns me to have the project budget change as well as talk about using a second source besides countywide sales tax. So I wanted to express that. We've talked about it a little bit, but I looked at it again and it doesn't make any sense to me, and it makes me worry about what staff is thinking about the other 8 projects that are going into the countywide half-cent sales tax.
Okay, I think, can you provide some background? I know we've had some discussion on pertaining to this on the countywide half-cent sales tax issues.
So Mayor and Deputy Mayor, I guess what I would say on that is that it's my understanding that there's been an understanding the entire time that there would be a half-cent sales tax, a citywide half-cent sales tax component with the project. But since this project is in the out years and we're not sure what's going to happen with the citywide half-cent sales tax once it expires, we've listed it as a GO bond project in the CIP for now, not knowing what those future years would be.
Mm-hmm.
Can I?
Yeah, well, I think, and the difference, actually, the cost is more than was originally put in, and we were always planning to use some citywide money in addition to the countywide money. Isn't that correct?
Mm-hmm. I've never heard that. I've been in all these discussions, and maybe I missed it, but what I saw with the projects that moved forward that were originally planned for citywide half-cent was that they didn't get funded. They didn't get done, they didn't get funded, and so they were on their own, and then staff gave us project budgets that remained the same throughout a year and a half worth of discussions on moving forward to the countywide half-cent sales tax. And in some occasional discussions, it was, well, we know that that's a 15-year tax, and we've accommodated for the fact that the scheduling might be such that costs could go up and down. Those numbers are good. At least that's what people were feeling a year ago. And we don't have an extension on the citywide half-cent sales tax. I personally think it's a good idea, but we don't. So it expires in 2019. And so it troubles me that we've, again, if somehow the staff is changing the project budget on this one project, what are the thoughts about the rest of them? And I'm okay if we need to go back and update them, but I would like to see them all. But I also thought that we were funding those projects 100% out of the countywide half-cent sales tax. I don't recall any discussion of splitting the funding.
Okay. Mr. Gerber?
Deputy Mayor, Mr. Mayor, thank you. As I talked about from the top of this discussion, there's probably going to be follow-up, and I think this is one of those areas that, if you'll allow us, I'm not sure we have a great answer for the change in the project budget, so let us look into that. Historically, it does look like this has always been the case, that there was a half-cent citywide and a half-cent countywide split on this project from what we've been able to locate, but it, not to plead ignorance too much, but it does predate
I understand.
the three of us making this presentation.
I understand.
So, but looking back at historical data, it appears that that's the case. In any case, if you'll let us look into that further, we'll come back next time.
And if I can reply to that, I appreciate that. I knew that you hadn't been here, any of you, and so I went ahead, I wanted to bring it up tonight because I do think it's really important for all of us to get on the same page and to reconcile those numbers. And so thank you for letting me raise the issue. And related to that, it just concerns me as we look at when there are new projects coming on or new approaches, if we need to readjust any project budgets for the countywide, any projects, but particularly the countywide ones, to do that now before we settle on the interlocal and we settle on whatever our scheduling is and our expectations are. I think it should happen now. And as we look at new projects that are coming on, again, we've seen them come steadily, and you've got that printout that bumped other projects. Every one of them, there's been a good reason to do that. But as we move forward, I hope that we'll all keep in mind all those projects that are waiting and make sure that if we bump one ahead, that there's a really strong reason to do that and that we've got some idea of what we're going to do with the ones that are still waiting. Thank you.
Okay, and I would like to comment on a couple of things on the comments that you made. And I can agree that I would have liked that we could have spent everything that was the revenue we had as it came in, and some years we didn't for a number of different reasons. But this year, we're planning to spend $35 million the year of the streets, and we'll really, if everything goes right, we will make up for those years when we were low. So I look at it, that's past. We can't do anything about it, that we didn't do everything we could have, but now we're making a plan to make up for it. So I look to the future and hopeful this year we'll have a great construction year and we'll get caught up much on that. And the second item, I know some of the streets that were on the original plan that came out in 2009, I would be more concerned if we did all of them lockstep, the way it was decided in 2009, rather than if there another need comes up, we move something in and slide them in and out. I'm very strongly in support of being flexible. Streets change, issues change, and so I really don't think it's good to point out we had a street on 2010 and it wasn't done. Well, maybe there's a very good reason. We have good engineers, and those changes are made. And I think we have to be flexible and adaptable. Same way with setting a new countywide tax for the next 15 years. There will be changes because we can't predict what's going to be happening in 10, 15 years from now. And I think we err on that side. At least let the public know there will be changes in the plans that we make that are out. We're doing good if we can do it 5 years in advance. Certainly 10 and 15 is going a long way out. Councilwoman Claire.
Okay, just so I understand, if it wasn't done in 2010, 11, 12, they don't go forward, they get bumped off? What happens?
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Councilwoman, I think the answer to your question is yes. Not to be facetious about it, but some of them moved forward, some of them bumped off because of changing priorities from this body, from staff, from growth. It varied by street.
Okay. Okay, any other questions? Councilwoman Elisa.
Thank you, Mayor Wolgast. First of all, I would like to say that I sincerely appreciate the attention to detail that my colleague has provided with this issue. I mean, it is commendable that as a body, we can go ahead and we could do that. However, in the same breath, I will say that as a council body, we have to be extremely careful. Because as a council body, our policymaking role is to ensure that we are, very much like you're doing, the safeguards of the budget that we are presenting to our public. However, we also have to be extremely cognizant that we're not the professional. And in addition to that, we have to be extremely cognizant with the message that we portray out to the community, because I think that the message that was sent out to the community was, we promised you things that we didn't do, and I'm trying to let you know that we didn't do them. I think that if we have been paying attention in every single meeting, when there is a change in the CIP, we are notified. When there is a change in the budget, we are notified. And typically, those changes have happened. We have heard, I think that there's been like, in the last 6 months, I have heard the phrase, we have decided to postpone projects because it was extremely important that we were cost efficient with the dollars that we were making use of, and that we made sure that we tied all of those street projects to a project that had to do with our mains, to a project that had to do with our sewer system, with a project that was going to be a better bang for the dollar, so that whenever we went ahead and we laid out the road, we didn't have to go back and dig into it. So I want us to all understand that absolutely, there have been things that maybe have not been taken care of right now, but it has not been because the city staff or the policy body has decided that the streets are not important. The engineers of this city, the staff of this city, the professional body of the city that is being held accountable for these works are doing the best that they can with the resources that we have available. And sometimes that means that some projects are going to be bumped off. Sometimes that means that we're going to have an, E311 call, and we're going to go ahead and patch them, because at this point in time, there is an asset that is in larger need for us to go ahead and do that. Furthermore, as technology has changed, some of those projects may have been able to be mitigated with something else. And one of the things that I was very excited about having Mr. Peak here was that when he was selected with the promise that he is an expert, that this is the area that he has focused on, working on these road projects, understanding how to not just throw some asphalt in a hole and then expect for it to stick, because we know that that's not working. I drive and I hit the potholes. We all do. But I think that at this point in time, rather than going ahead and sending out a message to our community that, hey, these things are not being done, I think that we have to be extremely cautious, that we maybe ask other questions or maybe educate ourselves, so that when we go ahead and we portray the message, it's not that we're just nonchalantly not doing projects and just throwing them aside. It's that there's things that may not get done because at this point in time it is not the priority, or it would have been a much higher burden to the city to go ahead and invest in a project that then we would have had to go back and invest in public works stuff. There's just so many factors. Budgets are landmarks. Budgets are things that we want to attain to. But the reality is that with the weather changes, with the budget changes, with so many things that are happening, a lot of those times, all of those things are not going to be able to get done. And that's the message. It's not a ding. I appreciate the heart that is behind this, but I think that we also have to be very cautious with the message that we're sending out to the public.
Okay. Councilwoman Schwartz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Karen, I really appreciate all the work that you put into this, and I think part of our role is to make sure that the money is being spent. That's what a governing body is supposed to be doing. So I really also believe that we need to send the right messages out to the community. My question is to Doug, and it didn't show the budget totals, which would have been nice on the street citywide, have cent sales tax street projects. And Karen added them up, and it was $75,706,000, and we spent $56,812,000. Where was that $16.3 million that was not spent? Where did it go?
Okay. That's one. Yeah. Mr. Gerber?
Councilwoman Schwartz and Mr. Mayor, thank you. significantly in excess of what we would take in. So for example, I think in a normal year, it's in the, 14, 15, $16 million range. This year in the half-cent CIP, we're planning on spending $28 million. And so the simple answer really is it remained in fund balance to be spent, which is what we'll be doing this year.
Okay, the year of the streets.
That's right. Okay. Councilman Shum?
Thank you. In the interest of finding common ground between my colleagues, which is not always the easiest thing to do, we do need the accountability of streets, but we also need the flexibility to change. So again, bringing up an idea that Councilman Jensen's put forth before, if we had a list, a master list of streets, so that when something gets bumped, it doesn't just drop off, as Councilwoman Clear mentioned, but it actually gets moved back, and the public can keep track of how many times it's been moved back and why. I think that would go a long way to providing us the flexibility we need to move things around, but also the assurance that something's not just going to disappear and not be brought up again.
Councilwoman Ortiz?
Thank you. Karen, I want to thank you for bringing this up. I picked up, I've been kind of going through some old books that I've had for several years to see what I could throw out, and I came across some CIP books that I looked at, so I just want to say thank you. It's okay to tell the public that we messed up. Maybe not, hold on, maybe not today, but we messed up. Why is this year the year of the streets? Because somewhere along the line, and I've sat in this chair for 11 years or 12, I don't know, Richard knows. 11, okay. Somewhere along the line, we forgot the streets, and it's okay. But now as a governing body, this governing body, Michelle, not years ago, I remember when we got the half-cent sales tax and they said, in 10 years, by the time we spend that money, we're gonna have to start all over because it's not even going to hit where it needs to hit. I have dirt, gravel streets in my district. Gravel streets. It's an existing street, Colson said. I had them look that up. But it's okay. So I'm not ashamed to say we have forgotten some streets, but today, in 2016, this is the year of the streets. We are going back. I'm going back. I'll take responsibility for that because I've sat in this chair that long. We're going back. We're looking to see where we need to go. But and it's okay, we've dropped, some streets have dropped off and we forgot. I've got some in my district I'm about to bring forward. But that's okay. It's okay to err. We're human, we make mistakes, but we're trying to make it right. We're trying to make it right. So I'm not sending out a negative vibe. And if I am, it's okay, because I'm human and I've messed up. This is the year of the streets. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. City Manager?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I appreciate all the comments, and Karen, I certainly, or Deputy Mayor, I appreciate what you said. We have worked hard to build an organizational structure that can address the challenges that we have here, and the challenges are immense. And what we've tried to do, especially with the hiring of Mr. Peak, was to bring in an expert who, somebody made reference to the potholes. Can't just throw a filler into the pothole. You have to make sure that you do it right. You can't, and I appreciate the commitment to the 2009 plan. We look at it, we start there, but sometimes we need to make the best decisions. And I do appreciate, I think we try hard to communicate what we're doing and why we're doing it and when we're doing it and how we're doing it and how much we're paying for it. So we're not perfect. I'm with Councilmember Ortiz on that list. But we're going to continue to communicate and try to deliver the best value to the community.
We have a person to speak on this issue, Teresa Miller.
Good evening. It's Teresa Miller. Thank you very much for educating me and giving me hope tonight. This is why I have hope. Things can be moved and shifted is what I hear. I'm going to make a reference to some streets being done only because I need you to go, because I can't remember the year, but I just can remember when what streets. Over in Oakland, Wabash, Freeman, and all those streets were cement were being overlaid. They had so much asphalt on them, and you can drive on them today, and they're peaked. There is a peak in the middle of those streets. That's how much asphalt's on there. At that time, I had asked my council person, please spend some of that asphalt that you're wasting on cement streets over there that people are saying they don't need over to my area. That is when I started to bring up Tyler, Polk, Taylor, the ones that are deteriorating to nothing, that have dirt underneath them. Here's my problem. I've got one now that is so bad that they can't even overlay it. They're gonna have to take it out. That's gonna be more money for the city to spend. I've got some streets over there that cannot wait the 5 or the 6 years that they might have to wait, because it will cost the city maybe 3 times as much to replace those streets than if they would just overlay them, if they can now. So that is what I get excited about, possibly. I see a couple projects on there. I'm not gonna point them out, but there's a couple projects on there that I think they could put on hold because they've been redone, and they are nearly not in bad shape as some of the other streets in Topeka. So I hope you look at that. You have given me lots of hope. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Is there other discussion on our discussion item on the capital improvement plan? Seeing none, we will close discussion on that. That completes our non-action items for this evening. Next are the announcements. There is no preliminary agenda since we do not have a meeting the next 2 weeks. So we will proceed with the announcements. Mr. City Manager. Let me borrow your M&M.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Department of Neighborhood Relations, the Community Engagement Group, was approved for an AmeriCorps. It's called the National Civilian Community Corps. They're going to send a team of 8 to 12 volunteers who will serve in the city between April 12th and July 10th. They're going to work with 21 different neighborhood groups, and the concept is to help advance some of the most critical neighborhoods to a healthy status, impacting 17,500 homes and estimated 35,000 children who live in the intensive and at-risk neighborhoods. The goal is to assist in reducing fear and crime, and we'll develop neighborhood pride throughout the city. So as that develops more, we'll provide more information, but we just got awarded that, so it's quite exciting.
May I interrupt?
Yeah.
And say that's significant.
Yeah.
I mean, that, again, say it, the first part again, because this is very competitive among cities throughout the country.
Yeah, so I want to recognize Sasha and Monique and the continued great work they do, but the Department of Neighborhood Relations was approved for an AmeriCorps National Civilian Community Corporation award. They're going to send 8 to 12 volunteers who will serve between April 12th and July 10th within 21 neighborhood improvement associations to work on issues important to the city, addressing children, issues with crime and poverty and other things. So it's really exciting. I also wanted to just announce that on Saturday, April 30th, there's going to be another e-cycle event in partnership with Shawnee County, and it's going to be from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's going to be at the parking lot at 400 Southeast 8th Street. But we did that about a year ago, and we had 90,000 tons of material that was provided. Mr. Gerber mentioned the CIP bus tour, which is really an outflow of the council retreat that we had a couple of weeks ago. That will be happening on April 2nd. And just as a final, if it's okay, Mayor, I'd like to ask Mr. Chief Brown to step forward and just talk about some national press that he's been getting and some of the things he's been doing in the community, in the police department. I don't think I would do justice to it.
All right. Okay. Chief Brown.
Mr. Mayor, elected leaders, so earlier this month, the Police Executive Research Forum put out their article in regards to law enforcement relationships throughout the country, and they did do an article on the city of Topeka with myself and Pastor T.D. Hicks. It was a great conference. We learned a lot. Pastor Hicks is one of my members of my Chiefs Advisory Board. I have 10 members throughout the community that represent all aspects and all walks of life within the capital city. And, Pastor Pastor Hicks is one of those members that, holds the department in high regard. However, he's constantly watching us and making sure that we are transparent in what we do. And as the city manager alluded to several times tonight, not just myself, but even our budget director, everything we do is to develop partnerships with our community and be more and more transparent. So we've heard that several times tonight in the presentations, that in order to build public trust, we have to be transparent. The city manager stresses to all department heads that's something that we constantly strive and work towards. So the police department is not any different than any of the other entities within the city government. So we're just trying to continue to work on those relationships. We're going to have the advisory board help us develop our use of force policy that we're going to be working on towards the next couple months, and that adds to the transparency of what we're trying to do. I think it's important for the public to have input in our use of force policy. This is not something that's done in every police department. It's a big step for law enforcement, but we believe the public truly supports us and is behind us, and we want to become more and more transparent as we go forward. So those are just some of the things that we've got going on right now.
Thank you. Thank you for the report.
That concludes my comments.
My brief announcement is that 2 weeks ago, Mars was to be here for a proclamation ceremony to participate in celebrating 75 years of M&Ms. You may have heard council members this evening opening and eating M&Ms. And actually, they delivered a couple boxes that we were to share the night of the proclamation. Well, they've decided they will not be back for their proclamation, so we broke open the boxes. And so that's what you've been hearing this evening. Councilwoman Claire.
Okay, a couple of things. I had the pleasure to help deliver meals today with Meals on Wheels. And I'll tell you what, they do a whole lot more than just deliver meals. I was very impressed. That was an interesting thing for me to do. I have an announcement that there's an AARP Smart Driver course that will be presented at the cottages Wednesday the 16th and Thursday the 17th from 11 to 3. And don't forget to get your gala tickets for the Boys and Girls Club at bgctopeka.org. And congratulations to the Osage City Boys State Basketball Champions.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ortiz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I just want to start out by saying I'd like to thank my constituents that called and checked on me and also called and reported all their concerns to me, knowing that I was at home sick. But it's just a bad case of the flu, so they're saying, or virus, so that's why I've been missing. I, too, would like to commend Mars on 75 years. I'm proud to say that I was a part of bringing them here and voting them, and it was probably one of the best votes that I've ever made. I know I had a lot of people, and we still catch a lot of flack on why would you support them. They're doing a better job of trying to get transportation out there. But, and they say, why would you want a chocolate factory? When you're sick, you eat chocolate. When you're sad, you eat chocolate. When you're happy, you eat chocolate. You just eat chocolate all the time. So I just want to commend them on 75 years. And I think that it's great that they're here in our community. And if you were at the St. Patrick's Day parade, they gave out tons of candy. And that's one of the things that they said that they would give back to the community. And they gave out tons. They were just dumping boxes out. I also want to say that this week is spring break for the 501 kids and different kids, and families ride free on the intercity transit. So that's awesome. They can get around and go where they need to go. City Manager, I'm glad to hear about the Job Corps crew that's coming. The last time they were here was probably about 20 years, and they cut down a whole bunch of bushes over there at Hillcrest, between Hillcrest and the where the property owners are. And they, we couldn't get anybody to help, but they came through and they cut all of that down so the kids can walk across the bridge and go home safely, because there's so much crime in there, and so the kids feel safe. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Shum.
Thank you. I had the privilege on the March 10th of attending the relaunch of the 501 press conference in regards to Wi-Fi for our students in 501, encouraging businesses to let students know that Wi-Fi is available without a purchase. And I think that's a great cooperative effort. Any businesses that continue to step up really do continue to deserve our support. On this CIP street projects that we're talking about for this year, I counted at least 9 projects on the map, including one that crosses over between Councilwoman Ortiz's district and mine, getting Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, and Maryland streets redone with a mill, a levee, and a full depth patch. That's been something that our area's been waiting on for probably 50 years. And so it is important. It's something that we've been advocating for a long time. I know we sometimes talk about this year being the year of the streets. My caution is that it better not just be the year of the streets, because we've got several years starting next year that also need to be the years of the streets. Excited to announce we're going to have an anti-crime summit coming at the end of April to District 4. So as more information comes out, I'll be glad to get that to my fellow council members. Very glad that Deputy Mayor Hiller held one last year and kind of set the bar, hoping that District 4 can surpass that. I've been assured by our police officers that it will be something that will surpass just because they learned so much from doing it in District 1 last year. So looking forward to that, and I appreciate the time that you guys have given to the streets, the focus that we've put on it. Even in the disagreements, I'm always hearing that we need to do better, and that's always a good sign. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Elisra, Councilman Jensen.
Thank you, Your Honor. So growing up, I always heard the phrase, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. I never really understood that, and to some degree I still don't. But Mars sure is tasty. I'm happy to be from there. I want to commend everyone who worked on the parade this Saturday. It was fantastic, even with the threat of a bit of rain. Wonderful event, lots of people in downtown. It was the first time we'd had a parade back on Kansas Avenue, and it was phenomenal. I can't wait to see more. Have a great week, everybody.
Councilwoman Schwartz.
Thank you, Your Honor. I passed out earlier a little flyer that says, "Don't miss the 9th annual music, just what the doctor ordered." I'm the representative from, the mayor appointed me to serve on the Health Access Oversight Committee, and we had our meeting a couple of weeks ago, 7 o'clock in the morning, so the doctors could get to work. But this is a great group that Stormont has. It was the Marion Clinic that is now Grace Med. They have 300 clients that they're serving. So please get out to their fundraiser on April the 3rd. It's a musical that the physicians all put together. TPD did it again. They're always doing great work. And I attended today the active shooter training by Officer Travis Jepson. This is phenomenal training, and I hope, he said that churches are asking for this training. Other groups in our city are asking for this training to be prepared if we have an incident like what happened at Sandy Hook and Columbine and all those places. So I would recommend everyone on the city council to train that active shooter training, because it was very good. My gym of Topeka this week is the Ritchie House. I went there yesterday morning. I had not been to the Ritchie House all these years, and it is phenomenal. The Shawnee County Historical Society has that, and they're open for tours, and they're going to have at least 2,800 school kids come through this spring in field trips, and they have about 10,000 visitors each year. Visit Topeka has produced, and I'm hoping that we get Brett Odick here to do the report on 2015. The zoo actually went up from 200,000 visitors a year to 300,000 visitors a year. So we are growing in our tourism in Topeka. Then Old Prairie Town had 90,000. The Kansas Children's Discovery Center had 85,000, on and on and on. And I just think that we need to build up our tourism in Topeka. And one of the things I talked to Melinda and Bill Wagnon yesterday morning was that if we have the map that we have in Topeka that shows all of our sites to visit, and we have that map at every single site, I think we'll get even more visitors. So get out and visit Topeka. Thank you.
Councilman Cohen.
Thank you. We had a great turnout at our public meeting on March 10th about widening Urish to Indian Hills, and I'd like to thank Councilman Shum for coming to that. Now, other council members, I go to your meetings. And we have another one coming up, March 28th, and it'll be at Christ the King, and the meeting will probably start around 4 o'clock, and it's about the citywide half-cent sales tax. It's in the book. Fixing of 25th Street from Wanamaker to Arrowhead, which is part 1. Arrowhead to Fairlawn will be part 2, and that'll come the following year, I believe. So, once again, Monday, March 28th, about 4 o'clock, Christ the King Church.
Okay, good, thank you. Councilman Harmon.
Thank you, Your Honor. Last week, I got home, and there was a message on my answering machine from a constituent. I don't have caller ID, so I do have an answering machine. Anyway, this constituent identified herself as last name of Miller or Milner. I'm hoping she's listening tonight. She wanted to talk to me about the CIP. I heard the first 3 numbers of her phone number, but I could not decipher the last 4. I bet I played that message back 50 times. It's 969, blah, blah, blah. So, Ms. Miller or Milner, if you're watching tonight, please call me.
And say the number slowly.
And say the numbers slowly. It's not, I got the 969. That's not the problem with the last 4 digits. So anyway, that's, if you're listening, all sincerity, call me. Thanks.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Heller.
Thank you, Mayor. First, let there be no mistake. I tried to express it, but how much I appreciate the Public Works staff and all the street work that we've done. I'm just perpetually soberly aware of how much more we have to do. So appreciate everybody's work on that. Congrats to neighborhood relations. Having those 8 to 12 volunteers for 4 months, however long they're going to be here, is just invaluable, particularly for those of us who represent the more challenged neighborhoods, to be able to focus some time out there and a listening ear and somebody to encourage people to just do more things in their neighborhoods is tremendous. So thanks so much for applying. I don't see Sasha's back there someplace.
No, she's not.
Is she gone? Okay. Well, she'll just tell her I said that. And congrats to the TPD on their award. That's awesome. St. Patrick's Day Parade was fun. Councilman Cohen and I were at the head of the parade. I recommend anybody who wants to do that, get somebody who has cute kids to bring the kids along and let them carry the banner so you can just wave. But it's amazing how many people know the kids, and that's just a lot of fun too, to be at the front of the St. Patrick's Parade. Want to encourage everybody as well on attending the Up With People event. I think they were fabulous tonight. I too, not quite 50 years ago, but getting close, sang in the Up With People group in my high school. Never traveled, but it was quite an experience and being part of that. And the message that they bring to Topeka, to me, is who we are. It's talking about welcoming and building relationships with people of different ages, races, cultures, and so on. They embody that and share that message. But looking back at us, I think that's who we are. And so it makes it especially special to me to have them here, to have them at Williams, to have them at Topeka High. And I gotta give some props to the 501 folks and the other hosts. I'm hosting one of the staff as well, but when they have you come and meet them, they give you a theme and ask people to dress up, and they naturally picked an Oz theme that they asked everybody, and just asked Tammy Austin how many pictures people sent her of her dressed up like Dorothy with her red shoes and a basket with Toto. Just saying. They had a lot of fun with it, and 501 is really being a tremendous host to this, and it's great for the kids. Related to that, everybody knows we're a really great theater town, but I went with friends to see Memphis at Civic Theater last Saturday night. And what I was expecting, because I hadn't paid a lot of attention, I guess, I knew kind of what the story was. I was expecting fabulous singing and dancing, because it's a Broadway musical, and certainly got 150% of that. But it's also got quite a storyline and quite a message. It's a very powerful show. And probably a big cast, as most of those big musicals are. probably 3/4 or more African American. I was with some people who included some folks from out of town, and they were so good, and the play was so good, and this gentleman leaned over and he goes, "Are they all local?" I said, "Yes, sir." You know, we have so much to be proud of. There are a few tickets left. That show runs through March 26th, and I would encourage people to gather up some folks and go see it. It's awesome, and again, so much the story that we talk about every day in our heart here in Topeka. And last but not least, Happy Easter.
Okay, good. That completes the announcements for this evening. We'll proceed to public comment. The first person is Thomas Potter.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, and council, and managers and administrators. There's a lot of information to take in. Almost forgot where I was at. I'm going to start at the end in case I run out of time. I'm trying to draw attention towards southeast California between 37th and 45th. That project is scheduled, I guess, to be done in about 4 years, reconstructed with a 3-lane asphalt, full-depth asphalt road. And what I want to do is make sure that the council at least considers putting it at the top of the priority list for this upcoming year. And I'm going to kind of go back to the beginning where I wanted to start, because in case I run out of minutes. I've had a lot of frustrations, with the way the system works. Back 10 years ago, we had, the city proposed to construct a 3-lane, full-depth asphalt road for 2 miles on California Street, starting at 29th and going to 45th. And it would have the full complement of improvements like curb and gutter, sewers, sidewalks, and streetlights. And basically the community and the residents that live along California concurred with that wholeheartedly, and so did I. But the council person we had at the time was Mr. Jack Wolfel, and his vision of California was going to be a 5-lane. And he was pretty adamant about that. And so in the process, we lost the funding, $9 million, and we also lost the street. Of course, we lost the street. The money, the majority of it went to McVicker between 5th and I-70. And, I'm not trying to be disrespectful or anything, but I'm just trying to put credence to my frustration. And so moving back over to California now, I know we're going to get started on 37th to 33rd this year, and I appreciate that, and I commend the council for that. And in the following year, we're going to go ahead and go to 29th Street, which is good. I commend you for that.
You have 1 more minute.
Okay. And so, dry. But what I want to do is try to put as much focus on 37th to 45th. The condition of the road's terrible. The wearing surface is falling apart. It's needs attention right away, and that's what I'm here for tonight. Is to ask the council to consider putting it at the top of the priority list, so we could get something done as soon as possible. I know there's $8 million left over from the half-cent sales tax. That'd be great if we could start up at 45th Street this year and work back to 41st and then finish the next, with the roundabout being done. We could go ahead and tie that in next year. And Guess I got about 3 seconds, so thank you.
Good timing. And we hear you, and we certainly understand what your feelings about this. Councilman Harmon.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Potter, thank you very much for coming tonight, and I too share your frustrations about California. When Councilwoman Ortiz and I first came on the council in 2005, Councilman John Nave had promoted California project, and we voted for the 3-lane project. And we also opposed the events that led to it being dropped. So I'm glad to see it back on. It needs to be back on, and it should never have gotten off track.
Right.
So, and I appreciate you coming here, and I share your frustration. Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
Councilman Shum.
Yes, I'd also like to thank you, Mr. Potter, for coming out. It's always good to see new faces speaking out, especially about your neighborhood areas, and I appreciate you talking with me on the phone about it. Just for my other colleagues' benefit, 37th to 45th is currently in the money we're discussing in the interlocal to be done, and the concern is where it would be put out with the county. Doesn't make a lot of sense to put it off 5 or 6 years after the rest of the streets get done. So I appreciate what Mr. Potter's saying, and it's something that as soon as we come to some sort of resolution on the interlocal or with the sales tax money, that I would strongly support being done, at least, if not next year, just in line with the other 2 renovations, so we get perhaps in 2 years after the first 2 sections are done, getting the rest of it done if possible, so that we don't have a really nice street all the way up to 37th, and then more of a third world street from 37th on. So appreciate it, Mr. Potter. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
You're welcome.
Our next speaker is Kathy Walker.
Hi, my name is Kathy Walker, and I am in my 6th week at Vallejo as the director of the Recovery Center. If I have a familiar face, it's because I used to work for the city 6 weeks prior. But I'm here because I personally want to thank the city on behalf of Vallejo and our clients for the grant money we receive from the Special Alcohol Drug Program Fund. The funding is used to support our social detoxification services. Vallejo's Social Detox is a 24-hour residential setting providing a safe, non-medical, therapeutic environment for clients with acute withdrawal from chemicals. While in detox, clients are assessed by an LPN or RN who are on staff first and second shift. Additionally, staff use the Clinical Institute for Withdrawal instrument and monitor vital signs. For acute care needs, clients are transferred via the ambulance to the hospital. Adequate rest and proper nutrition are encouraged for their optimal physical health, and motivational counseling is provided as appropriate. You can access detox services with Vallejo by calling 234-348-3448 and request detox services, or during business hours, you can come to 330 Oakley at any of the entrances, and after business hours, come to the east door for care. If the possibility of a medical complication exists, clients will be required to go to the hospitals to get a medical clearance. In 2015, Vallejo admitted 537 people into the detox services with an average length of stay of 3 to 5 days. Of those 537, 257 were referred on to treatment services with Vallejo. 162 went to inpatient substance abuse treatment, with many completing reintegration and outpatient programs. And 95 went on to intensive outpatient treatment services, which is a 4-day-a-week program. Vallejo is dedicated to providing the right amount of service to the right person at the right time with the right outcomes for the right cost. And we could not do it as effectively without the city's contribution. So again, thank you.
Thank you for those comments. They're appreciated. Thank you.
Thanks.
Next speaker is Reverend Raymond Berry.
Mr. Mayor, City Council members, and city staff, my name is Reverend Raymond Berry. I'm the pastor of Gethsemane Worship Center in North Topeka and co-chair of Topeka Jump. Topeka Jump is a coalition of 20 congregations in Shawnee County. All of our churches have individual responsibilities, partnering with local public schools, running food pantries, clothing closets, organizing mentorship and counseling programs, helping families pay rent, helping people find jobs, and anything we can do to meet immediate needs. But when we come together under the banner of Topeka Jump, we choose to look at community problems from a more systemic perspective. Our first campaign was around education, which resulted in 1,000 at-risk students having access to dropout prevention services. Last year, we focused on mental health to promote health and wellness in the lives of people with mental illness through employment opportunities, which resulted in a partial restoration of funds for mental health resources from the county. And this year, we have become increasingly aware of what we know as Topeka's safe and affordable housing crisis. Through a series of more than 20 meetings with city staff, officials, community stakeholders, and experts in the field of affordable housing, we learned that there are many very low-income and low-income families who have dire housing needs. Fortunately, we are excited about discovering ways that we can turn this crisis around for our city. We have reached out to every one of you for a meeting to discuss this topic. Additionally, everyone should have gotten a save the date letter for our upcoming annual event on April 26th at 7 p.m. at the Ramada Inn downtown. At our Nehemiah Action, there will be more than 1,000 people assembled to show our local officials how many people in Topeka really care about this issue. We expect our participants, since you are, as a council, have the ability to address this safe and affordable housing crisis. We know that addressing housing needs will not happen overnight, and we are familiar with the current programs the city has been engaged in. Thank you for the measures you have already taken to improve safety in our community, creating a special structures unit and court docket specifically for code violations speaks to your dedication to your community. We know that through programs funded by Neighborhood Relations, you have invested resources into housing and neighborhood improvements. However, members of our churches are overburdened by the cost of rent and utilities and are raising their children in unsafe conditions. We believe that the needs of our families require us, members of our community, and you, the local decision makers, to identify ways that Topeka can strengthen current programs and leverage more resources into our community. Thank you for your commitment, City Mayor. Mr. Colson, Deputy Mayor Hiller, and Councilmember Sandra Clear, and Councilmember Cohen, to meet with us and attend our Nehemiah. We also have met with Mayor Wogast. Mayor, we hope you will make a commitment to our Nehemiah Action. And I understand that we now have appointments with Councilman Shum, Councilwoman Schwartz, and Councilman Jensen. I urge everyone else to take time to meet with our committee on this issue before April 26th and to make a commitment to attend the April 26th Nehemiah Action Assembly at the Ramada Inn starting at 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Reverend Barry. And I know many of us, several of us have met several times with JUMP, and we continue to look forward to working with you on this issue. That's very important in our community.
Thank you very much.
Mayor?
I'm sorry, yeah, Deputy Mayor Hiller.
We can recognize a lot of the members, I think, because they have T-shirts that look like yours, but would you like to ask your group
Would all
that's
those
with you
from
to
Topeka
stand?
Jump, please?
Sure, please
And
do.
this is just a small portion of our...
Understood.
Thank you for coming tonight. We appreciate your being here.
They were asking if they would get M&Ms.
I'm out. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time.
Our next speaker is Henry McClure.
Let's see if we can get a case for the Nehemiah.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, thank you. I'd like the opportunity to talk to you about the International Council of Shopping Centers. I want to talk to you about retail being recognized as economic development in our community. There's an upcoming convention in Las Vegas that I'd like to see Shawnee County represented. Basically, the expense is really $950 to have a 10 by 10 booth. And if you, if you want to represent Topeka a little better, do a little better than a card table and a tablecloth. And this booth is something we should really have on hand. You know, this is something that Topeka should be used at other trade shows that we attend. You know, I know that you have a contractor that falls under their responsibility, but I think any good citizen ought to be able to come to the community and say, hey, retail is economic development. We pull in 33% of our sales tax from outside Shawnee County. These numbers are justified and verified through the Kansas Department of Revenue. I think very easily we could turn that number into 20%. One of the numbers I heard tonight was an 11% increase in our tourism. Well, there you go. There you have it. We can make retail a destination. We can make Topeka a retail destination very easily. And really what we need to do is we need to have, you know, I want to have a list of hey, you know, this is what we ought to have in Topeka. Well, okay, I talked to that person and this is what they said. So it's almost like this street list, you know? So, hey, what did that person say? So, because Topeka deserves better. We have a great community. I've attended the International Council of Shopping Centers on and off since 1984. I was actually represented in a video in 1983 of me doing a backflip, confessing my loyalty to the Crossroads Mall in Boulder, Colorado. That was done with a public-private partnership. You know, and we retired those bonds. Macerich is now the third largest mall owner. Macerich actually got their start here in Topeka, Kansas by buying the White Lakes Mall. The birth of Macerich, now being the third largest mall owner, they just bought Country Club Plaza. Could we attract a quality of like a Country Club Plaza tenant? You know, maybe you could hook one. You never know. But we got to show up to the game. Babe Ruth said half a win is showing up. And if we're going to send people there, once you take away, you know, add the airfare, because I think there's going to be some officials in the community there already. So if you add the airfare, meals and entertainment, your badge to attend the convention, then the $950 was really kind of a moot point. Doug Bassett at Berkshire Hathaway, he asked me to represent some of his shopping centers. I'm putting together a little magazine for the properties that I'm representing. Doug's representing, and I'm going to go to the other commercial brokers. But we need to have a face and a representation at the International Council of Shopping Centers just to be in the game and introduce Topeka as a nice place to live and a nice place to do business. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
I try to do everything in an elevator speech, but man, I went way over.
Okay,
thank you for your
good.
time.
Very good. Thank you. Good timing.
All right.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you for your comments.
Good night. Thank you.
That completes the public comments for this evening. We do have executive sessions. City Attorney, would you state the parameters for the first one?
The motion would be that the governing body recess into executive session for a period of 30 minutes to consult with the city's legal counsel regarding potential litigation that requires privileged attorney-client communication. In order to aid the discussion, the following individuals should be present: City Manager Jim Colson, Deputy City Manager Doug Gerber, Finance Director Brandon Kaufman, and myself.
All right. You have the motion. Councilman Harmon.
Before the chair entertains a motion, do we still have in our rules that if we're going to go past 10 o'clock, we have to have a motion to extend?
Yes, we do.
So wouldn't it?
We do that, yes.
Wouldn't it
Let's
be
do that
proper to
first.
entertain that motion first, Your Honor?
Yes.
Okay. With that in mind, I'd make a motion to extend the ending of the meeting past 10 p.m.
Councilman Jensen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no. I vote yes. And having voted yes, the motion is approved. And Councilman Harmon.
Thank you, Your Honor. With that in mind, and appreciate the indulgence of the chair, I'd move to go into executive session consistent with the parameters outlined by the city attorney for a time not to exceed, how
30
much?
minutes. It was 30 minutes.
30? It's past my bedtime,
I
but
know.
go ahead.
We're pushing our limits here. And Councilman Jensen seconds. Any discussion? All those in favor vote yes, opposed vote no. I vote yes.
10 yes.
10 yes. We'll go into executive session. Let's take a very quick break, and when the room is clear, we will start.